Welcome everybody to episode 12, season 2, Hit It Where They Mow, Talking Golf in Texas. Super excited today for episode 12 because in the studio with me to talk about fitness and performance and all things pertaining to nutrition, all the good things about playing golf at your very best, Mr. Damon Goddard. Damon, welcome to Hit It Where They Mow.
Absolute pleasure to join you on here, yeah.
Well, I'm so excited. I have to thank your brother Mike, or Michael. Does he go by Mike or Michael?
Well, it depends on the region where you're. No, it's Dr. Mike, Michael. Yeah, if he's in trouble, we go with his middle name. But yeah,
I got
we'll call him Mike.
Well, one day at Prestonwood Church, I went down into the Commons area and sat on the couch, and Michael and his wife came and joined me, and we got to chit-chatting. I told him what I do, write about golf, have a podcast on golf. He goes, well, you got to meet my brother, Damon Goddard. I said, I know who Damon Goddard is, because obviously I follow the career of Jordan Spieth and Will Zalatoris, and now Davis Riley, who's an up-and-coming star, no question. Yeah. And so I want to thank him for helping me get you down here today and talk some golf, talk some performance, talk some fitness and nutrition.
No, I mean, we're ready to dive into it. So yeah, hit me with any questions, but no, I'm glad he introduced us as well.
Beautiful. Well, thanking Mike reminded me to thank my sponsors, and I have 4 of them, 2 corporate and 2 golf courses, and I've got 2 of the best corporate sponsors a guy could ever want, and that's Veritex Bank, Veritex Community Bank, the Golf Bank of Texas, Malcolm Holland, Martin Thomas, all the nice people at Veritex Bank sponsor golfers like Scotty Scheffler and Cheyenne Knight, and there's many more that I'm forgetting to mention right now, but they are ideal for personal banking or small commercial banking. And also Niagara Conservation. I like to say avoid the water hazards on the course and at home. And they make the low flow toilets. And here's Tricia to tell you more about Niagara Conservation.
Thanks, Pat, and thanks, Niagara, for your support of so many nonprofits, including the Volunteers of America 125 plus years of national support for those in need. Are you tired of compromising between performance and water efficiency in your bathroom? Well, Niagara has the perfect solution for you. With almost 50 years of expertise, they've mastered the art of creating top-notch toilets, bidets, and more that save water without sacrificing performance. Don't miss out on this bathroom revolution and upgrade your space today. Niagara products are available nationwide.
And I want to thank my 2 golf courses, both of them near and dear to my heart, both of them very close to the Metroplex. Dornick Hills Country Club up in Ardmore, Oklahoma, only a 90-minute drive, maybe 2 hours at the most from the studio here in the Design District of Dallas, is a Perry Maxwell design. Actually, it was built on Perry Maxwell's farm. And they have great deals on non-resident memberships. So Google Dornick Hills Country Club in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and talk to the nice people up there about getting a non-resident membership or just putting a group together to go play Dornick Hills Country Club. And then back in my stomping grounds, East Texas, the Tempest Golf Club, right off I-20, tempestgolfclub.com. East Texas Golf as it was meant to be. Randy Wade and company over there. Go online and book a tee time with them. They have great stay and play packages. Thank you to my sponsors. Now we're ready to dive in. This wouldn't be possible without them. But
absolutely. Yeah, I love the sponsors.
I know when you and I were texting back and forth, you said, hey, I'm going over to Atlanta for the Tour Championship, and I'll be back in town. I'm thinking, I know that you get guys ready to play by getting them fit and, getting them, to eating right and all that kind of stuff. But what do you do on the eve of a tournament for these guys?
Well, the eve of the tournament is the culmination of, all week ahead of the game. So I'll give you a little glimpse into, kind of the Monday through the Wednesday evening, if you will. Tour Championship, I mean, we're honestly trying to wind things down, and the volume of work hopefully is pretty little at that moment. They're gassed by that point, especially after really a 3-week stretch of playoffs and high stakes, high stress, and we saw in Memphis how hot and humid that was. So, a lot of it comes into play where you're trying to honestly just manage their work volume, and that includes the practice piece, not only the training piece, but, the practice piece, the play piece. You're trying to really manage that entire volume. So, Monday and Tuesday, we're going in, we're doing our workouts pre-round. We may be doing some post-practice, post-round, cool down recovery strategies as well. And so that's going to be a little bit higher volume on your Mondays and Tuesdays. Wednesdays, we kind of throttle down a little bit, working on making sure everything's moving very efficiently, making sure all of our recovery checkpoints are on task. We're hydrated. We're using all the strategies of either cold plunge or saunas or, treatment that they'll need from a body standpoint. And we're really trying to get on Wednesday to just feel absolutely ready for the next day. And so when we do it properly, when we tee off on a Thursday, our goal, even in tournament play, is managing the volume of work with our pre-round warm-ups and our post-round, cool-down activities as well, and our recovery strategies that night. And that's where we're using the nutrition, we're using the hydration, we're using all of our tools available to us to help us recover faster. Because the idea is, hopefully you're teeing off on that last tee time on Sunday. I need you to feel as good on Sunday afternoon as you did starting on Thursday. So there's a lot that goes into a week. Like the tour championship, it's not as much volume, but quite honestly, even with my guys and all the other field, they're still putting a lot of work in for preparation. And hopefully by Wednesday evening, if you're not ready for the next day, then it's probably a little too late. But just to even get to the tour championship for these guys is a monumental task, should be celebrated. That whole week is pretty phenomenal. Obviously a very small field, very intimate setting. Everyone's a little bit more relaxed, and so it just makes for a really cool tournament.
Oh, it is. It's kind of a reward for you, too, to have someone make it there.
Well, yeah. It's just a reflection of being able to pour so much into the athlete through the entire year. And when you have an athlete that can get to the Tour Championship, it definitely is a part of you that needs to be celebrated with the athlete, because that's the goal. You want the guys to finish in the top 30 and move on to a great next year. And it really sets the precedent for what now is, thankfully, we actually have an off season. It really sets a precedent for a really good off season. What do we need to work on? And you're really trying to, that week assess everything that went on throughout the year. You're looking at all your programming, you're looking at all of your assessment metrics on, all the data points to see where everything went well. And then when they get done with the Tour Championship, hopefully they take a couple days off. And, quite honestly, my guys, we took a couple days off, and that's it. And now we're back in full-blown off-season mode, trying to get ready. So, it's a good time to reflect, but at the same time to then project what we're going to be able to do for that next year. And you're trying to emulate the success that we had in a year that you've made Tour Championship. Or even if you didn't, now you're trying to go back to your checkpoints and change where the trajectory was. It didn't, things may have gone a little awry mid-season or last portion of the season. So you're really trying to use all your data points to then go, okay, how can we mitigate that for that next year, and then put all those stop points in order to have a very successful season. It is a absolutely long season, and so to get these guys throughout the entire year to feel amazing towards the end of a Tour Championship, it's a task. Quite honestly, I've worked with athletes all across the board, from basketball to tennis to baseball. To me, those guys are easy to program and get ready for an event. Tennis emulates a little bit of the golf. They play a lot of matches during the week. But let's say like a basketball or a baseball guy, you got one game, maybe 2 games a week. Well, that's pretty easy to get them ready and then rest, or to get them ready and rest. Think about golfers. You're practicing all week long, and it's not just kind of dinking it around. You're getting after it. You're really kind of honing things in, and then you got 4 days, hopefully 4 days of absolute, grinding. And then you got a travel day, that night or even on a Monday, and you're right back into it. And so there's, the life of a PGA player is pretty, it's rigorous, man. And
Right.
the only thing we see is those 4 days of play.
It sounds to me like, though, that you're very meticulous in quantifying what you do. And is that then? Let me just see if this is an editorial comment.
Yeah.
Can some of that be mental as well? In other words, I know I've got to do this, this, and this, or I'm not going to be ready.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what we always say, proper preparation prevents poor performance, right? So
okay.
we're always taking a look at, the preparation is going to be very planned out.
Okay.
So that's where the quantifiable piece goes
Sure.
in. But you don't know, what to prepare for if you don't have those quantifiable, data points to go, this is what we need to work on, right? And so golf is real easy. I mean, obviously I can take a shot and I can get an exuberant amount of numbers off of my, 5-iron, 7-iron. I know all those numbers, but how do we do that with the body, right? How do we quantify how efficient we're moving? What is my range of motion? And so, or how well am I recovering? How well am I sleeping? What are my hydration points? What are my, glucose levels? All these little data points start to come into play in order to elicit a high performance out of my athlete. And so those data points come into play pretty keenly because, if you're seeing these big dips in specific numbers, you better make sure that you're either mitigating that or correcting it before a tournament starts.
Hydration is a critical deal, and especially at my age. And I had a little episode about a month ago where thankfully everything was okay, but the guy made a great comment. I got real dizzy. I came in, I had a headache that evening. He said, man, go get checked out. And so I went to the emergency room. They were very nice. They're in Longview, and they got me checked in and rehydrated me, and everything was okay, and I could play the next day. But it just showed me that as much water as I thought I was drinking, I was still very dehydrated, and just kind of enlighten us as to how a person manages that, either the 70-year-old guy at the country club or the great athlete. And then the Baylor game that I watched the other night, all those guys were cramping up, and they were trying to prepare for that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it kind of goes back to, at the highest level, we're gathering all these massive data points.
Okay.
Right? But let's take, for example, you and I. I mean, we're not playing on PGA, and I am nowhere near that, right?
Right.
And so what we have to take a look at is, just from a daily performance level, what are my low-hanging fruits that I can, really kind of pick off the tree to make sure I'm just moving well, feeling well, sleeping well. And so the most, the pieces that are most neglected in our daily habits: sleep. Most of us have horrible sleep. Nutrition's an easy one. Hydration, most people are dehydrated anyways, right? And then I'm
gonna have some water at the top.
And our stress management, right? So really, those 4 low-hanging fruits. If I can get better, what we call in my world, sleep hygiene, right? Make sure I'm getting enough sleep. My nutrition's on point. I'm not eating a lot of processed stuff, refined carbs, all the sugars and whatnot. Just stay away from sugars. But then, really to keep it easy, for guys like you and I, is like, if I can, at a minimum, drink half of my body weight in ounces, right? So let's say, I got a 200-pound athlete. If he can drink 100 ounces minimum during the day of water, I know they're going to be pretty darn good, right? And so
that's 10 ounce glasses of water.
Yeah, it seems like a lot, right? But if I spread that throughout the day, it's pretty simple to do, right? Pretty simple. But we're in Texas heat right here. I mean, this has been a brutal summer. So sometimes, we will throw a little bit of the electrolytes piece in there, and quite a bit of the sodium pieces in there as well. And I love to use, different, hydration packets, things like that. But, one that's near and dear to me is called Element. It's got a great sodium piece to it. And we've just got to replace some of the salt that we're losing quite a bit. And that's kind of a lost aspect, because we think we're pounding the water, but we're really losing a lot of salt and electrolytes as well. But the way I look at it too is, and I would ask you, what did we do 2 days prior to that event, right? And leading up to that event, and even if you're hydrating the morning before, that's great. but the hydration should have really kind of started the day before the actual tournament. And so we've got to take a look at the big picture of going, what am I doing to prepare for an event? I know it's going to be 110 degrees. I better get my 8 hours of sleep. I better get some good nutrition. I'm going to stay away from a lot of the sugars for a couple of days. Hopefully you're staying away from a lot of the sugars before. I'm hydrating a couple of days before. And then quite honestly, I'm doing a lot of my stress management tools as well, just to mitigate where I'm at from a stress standpoint. And we know golf is a stress-inducing sport anyways.
Right.
But if I'm going into it in a real high sympathetic mode, that fight or flight, well, then my hands start to get rigid, then my touch gets lost, then my decision making gets a little bit awry, right? And so now, if I could just mitigate those 4 things and bring it into just my casual tournament, I know the confidence that I'm going to bring, knowing I've had a couple days of really good nutrition, sleep, stress management. Then I have a little bit of freedom to play, right?
That's fascinating.
And notice,
fascinating,
notice I didn't even talk about movement just yet.
No, we hadn't.
Right?
No.
And so
Low-hanging fruit, as you say.
The low-hanging fruit. But if I can't challenge those 4 things, I know my movement's going to be poor. And so why am I going to try to put proper movement and doing all my flexibility and strengthening and all that when I can't even really manage my really simple 4 components of just daily living, right? And so that's where I always encourage, if I have an amateur coming in and they, say, I want to play better and, I've got these tournaments I want to go in, let's track it back. I do want to see how you move, but let me see how you live first. And then if this begets really good, categorical, points, cool. That sets the foundation for being able to move a lot better. And so that's where I like to take a look at those really low-hanging fruits that all of us should be doing anyways.
I was just thinking, as you were talking about stress management, what are some things, like one thing I was thinking about is get to the airport 2 hours ahead of your flight.
Right.
That way you're relaxed. You're not rushing to get to the flight.
No.
There are some other things. I guess in anything, go a little early, right? Yeah.
Well, go a little earlier. I mean, obviously, stress management. Listen, we're in a moment in time where the phone is that we carry every single time. I mean, just simply pulling it up is a stress-inducing event because we're going to get a dopamine response from a text or some kind of message on our Facebook. Somebody liked our whatever. We get that dopamine. We're like, oh, this is awesome. But then essentially it just dumps us, and we're constantly in that search of
look at your phone all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then what we think is a really cool tool is now actually a stress-inducing event every single time. And so mitigating stress to me is pretty paramount, especially in now. I mean, even just simply driving here for 10 minutes and stoplight and honking and there's a lot of things going on. And this may sound a little hokey, but an easy way for me to mitigate that stress management is having those key windows during the day. And I'm not talking 30 minutes, I'm not talking an hour. Just give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes where, and I always encourage my guys is what does our gratitude journal look like? What am I actually thankful for? And I always start the day with that, because if I can start the day in gratitude, I know I can start to lead with that same momentum throughout the day. And so the little things that start to throw me off a little bit, I'm actually a little bit thankful for. It didn't happen, to me. It happened for me to learn something from. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but if I'm starting to lead with gratitude, especially during a tournament, I mean, you got to think about it. Even if I showed up late, even if I know I'm late to my tee time, sit back just for a second and go, this is pretty cool. I get to spend some time in nature. I get to spend some time with my guys. I get to play a sport that I love. Obviously we might want to be a little results oriented, but at the same time, if I start, leading with that gratitude piece, even just taking 30 seconds just to pause, because practicing the pause to me is pretty paramount.
Practicing the pause.
Yeah, practice the pause, and then
that's a takeaway right there.
No, 100%. And then You know, and a lot of us, we don't even know really how well to breathe. I mean, we're very, you know, upper chest breathers instead of diaphragmatic breathers.
Yeah.
And so, you know, even that makes a world of difference on where, you know, our sympathetic state is, our fight or flight, or our parasympathetic state is from a nervous system of rest and digest. And so even if, you know, I hit a bad shot, and this is a great tool. Let's say I hit a bad shot. Most of us are going to dwell on it, right? I mean, we're like, oh man, I stink, I'm the worst golfer, blah, blah, blah. I started to roll in a lot of the negative pieces, right? Well, what is that going to do to my nervous system? It's going to escalate me into this fight or flight, because now I'm pouring so many negative, you know, emotions into my brain, I can't even think about what my next shot is going to be. Now,
I had that experience at the
100%.
World Amateur.
Well, here's the deal: is bad shots are going to happen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Human emotions are going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But allow yourself that moment in time. I might say, man, that was an absolutely horrendous shot. But then I need to switch gears really quick and go, that happened, right? And now I'm practicing the pause. That just happened. I acknowledge what just happened. I know what caused it. I did a over the top or a flip, early cast, early. I mean, we got all the swing characteristics that caused me to block it right. But allowing that little 10-second moment to go, okay, let me assess what just happened.
Yeah.
But then I've got to toss that out of my, you know, brain waves for the simple fact I've got a shot that now I've got, assuming a 250-yard walk, some of us maybe a 150-yard walk, to then assess how my next shot is going to be executed. And one of the coolest tools I learned from a late friend of mine, he passed away this year, an amazing golf instructor, and he always says, reinforce it with, it is like me too. And then, it is like me too. So if I hit a shot, and then I'm reinforcing it with a lot of the negative pieces, going, oh, I stink at about. Well, it is like me to stink. It is like me to block it right. It is like me to mishit this next shot. Or reinforce it, you know, acknowledge what just happened, use the walk then to my next shot and go, it is like me to recover from this, and this is how I'm going to start to execute the shot. And now what I'm doing is preparing myself in a very positive fashion to then execute that, because it is like you to recover from that block right. And that is a cool tool to use, and honestly, it's a cool tool to use even in life. You know, whether you're, you know, having a, you know, disagreement with a spouse or having an argument with the kiddos or whatever, how we respond rather than react is going to be really cool, because it is like me to then listen to my kid when he's actually bringing something to the table, or it is like me to blank when my, you know, having a disagreement with my spouse or partner, and so it's just a really cool tool, but it's very applicable in the golf world.
Great stuff. What was that? The pause.
Practice the pause. Practice the pause.
Practice the pause.
Yeah.
I want to back up a little bit. Tell me about Damon Goddard. I mentioned your brother. Your brother was from Allen, played football at Stephen F. Austin, excuse me, is the headmaster at Prestonwood Christian Academy. That's how I got to meet him. And we were talking earlier, your dad was a football coach, and you ended up going up in the Houston area. Kind of tell us about that, and then also how you got into this business and how people can access you.
No, for sure. So tracking back, you know, Dad being a football coach, you know, we were really exposed to being around athletes our entire life.
Right.
And then, you know, my brother and I are very competitive anyways, in a really good way. You know, and we were best friends growing up. You know, by nature of having a football coach father, we moved a lot, right? And so we were very dependent on our friendship, and honestly, just very dependent on each other's company. You know, and
you said there's a 5-year difference?
A 5-year differential.
And my younger brother and I was 5 years.
It's a weird dynamic, isn't it? And so, obviously Mike developed a lot earlier than I did, and I think I may have gotten stunted by 8th grade and never grew again. He's
should have left those Marlboros alone.
Exactly. Don't do drugs, guys. So Mike's a really tall guy. I mean, he's just your prototypical, college quarterback. I mean, tall, built. I mean, just very athletic. I think that's probably where he had an incredible arm. I got the speed in the family, and so I leaned a little bit more towards the soccer route, and I thrived very early on. And I think I first touched the ball when I was about 5 years old, and didn't look back for another 20-something years. Going back to Mike and I's relationship, it's really neat to have a brother like that who's succeeding in athletics, succeeding in schools, and really just kind of succeeding in overall. And it's a good model to work from.
Right.
And when you're looking at somebody to emulate, you're like, man, this guy's doing everything well, but at the same time challenging me to then kind of step my game up. And so where I knew I wasn't going to thrive in the football world, that's where I took to soccer. And so luckily I was able to play college, and played a very, very short career on the pro side.
Where in college?
So I went to a small university, Lee University, right outside of Chattanooga. Beautiful place to be, and it was so much fun playing soccer there, and that was fun. That catalyzed my move over here to Dallas, and I was going to continue the soccer career here in Dallas. And then at that point, the body was pretty done. I had some pretty big injuries.
Well, other than wrestling and boxing, I can't think of a sport requiring more fitness than soccer, because there aren't no timeouts. Right?
No timeouts. You're averaging around 12 miles a game just running. I mean, it's a brutal sport, but to me, it's a very beautiful sport. I mean, there's so much artistic nature to it, and there's a flow to it, and it's a dance. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. Of course, I'm really biased on that, but
one thing I'm going to make an editorial comment here. One thing I'm not a big soccer person, but it's likened to golf in that it can be very frustrating and disappointing. In other words, you work the ball all the way down and then you miss or something, they kick it.
Right.
And you start all over, right?
All over. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's got that element to it.
It does have that.
You have to persevere.
The yo-yo element. Yeah, for sure. So luckily soccer brought me to Dallas, and at that time, I had finished all my undergrad work in biology and exercise science, and I knew the route I always wanted to go into was the sports medicine world or sports performance world. And so when we came to Dallas, I actually taught for a year, and quickly realized I loved teaching, but I wanted to do it in a different element. So that brought me to the sports performance world, or back then it was personal training or whatever. And I knew I didn't ever want to do personal training. It's not a knock on personal training. I wanted to work with athletes, and so luckily right off the bat when I started the first business when I was maybe 23 years old, we started working with football and hockey and all these guys, and I was really lucky to be acquainted with a lot of them. So I got exposed to the pro athlete world pretty quick. The evolution with that, obviously I'm an avid educational consumer. I always wanted to consume education. So I was like, I need to learn more on the physiology side. I need to learn more on the holistic nutrition side. And so just consuming education, and I still to this day never stop educating and or learning the new things. But there came a time, this is probably about 18 years ago, in the career where I started getting these golfers coming in, and I'm gonna throw myself under the bus. I was like, what are you guys coming in here for? All you do is ride a cart and drink brandy and smoke a cigar while you're playing.
Beautiful.
I mean, and that's a beautiful day probably. And quite honestly, I was kind of taken back a little bit, but then the more I looked into, really 18 years ago or so, the professional golfer, there was really, and this was the Tiger Woods kind of, when he was
Justin
starting,
Leonard, that group,
you started to see these guys that looked athletic, and we're actually winning a lot. And you're like, okay, there may be something to it. But when you go and to do any of the research, or what performance are stuff are you guys using, all you would find was rehab, right? And so when I took a look at it, I was like, well, obviously you need a rehab from back and shoulders. There's some real common injuries. But I was like, well, what if we actually implemented a lot of the sports performance piece to avoid the rehabilitation side and actually develop these guys into really cool athletes? And so, I took the mindset, it's easier to develop an athlete into a golfer than it is a golfer into an athlete. If I can get a younger guy and develop him athletically, I know we're going to succeed in the golf world. But if I took an older guy that was, just golfed, and they go, oh, I need to, want to become an athlete, I'm like, man, you've been playing a one-sided sport for 25 years of your life. We've got a lot of unwinding to do in the body to build athleticism. So that's what I always say is, being able to develop and kind of spearhead a little bit of the athletic development performance piece at the very beginning of these guys' careers is paramount. Developing athleticism is going to be a key element, because I know they're going to be prepared to have a very athletic move in their golf swing anyways. And I'm not going to have your common injuries that we see on the amateur side. So I was really blessed when we took a look at it 18 years ago to see the evolution now of how much performance and how everyone in the field now is, they've got their physios, their chiros, their, massage therapists and nutritionists. They're really surrounding themselves with a team of individuals to take care of the body. Whereas back then, you'd go back into a PGA event and there's maybe one or two guys that would use the fitness trailer. Now you can't even move in the fitness trailer. There's so many guys actually, really concerned about how can I elicit the 1% out of my performance through my body to then, impact my golf game.
Wow.
Yeah. It's been fun to see the evolution.
Yeah, I was thinking when you said, make a golfer into an athlete, and I don't know that I never actually saw this, but I always heard it that Gary Player was on the Johnny Carson show, and golfers, athletes, and he got out and did a one-arm push-up or several. Yeah. And of course, he's always been a fitness freak. What about your relationship with the stars now? Like for instance, Jordan. I've got a chapter. I've given you a copy of my new book, The Fringe Runner. Everybody loves Jordan. He's the boy next door, but he's an assassin. He wins when he gets in contention. He's the closest thing to Arnold Palmer. He's very personable. People pull for him. You've been his coach for some time. I don't know if his coach is the right word, but
I've been the performance coach. So
tell us about that.
It's been really fun working with an athlete like that. I mean, as we've alluded to earlier, I've worked with a lot of
because he was kind of a skinny high school kid when he first came on the scene at the Byron Nelson.
Yeah, absolutely.
16 or 17.
I started working with him when he was at 16. But you knew immediately that there was something different about this, this particular individual, and we see it with these pro athletes. I mean, they have that it factor that you just can't really define. It's just an intangible, right? So he knew there was an element to an athlete like Jordan back then. And to see the very fast track very early, I mean, he won right off the bat, when he started his professional career. And then to see this, massive upswing of his fame. The one element that I think that sets him apart and a lot of these athletes apart is really, it roots back to where their foundation is anyways, meaning great parents, great family. He built the foundation of all the character even before fame hit.
Right.
Where he knew himself. He had a sense of self even before the fame hit. And then then you go on the television shows and every media wants a piece of you, and you can't even go get Jimmy John's or whatever without signing 15 autographs. It's really interesting. However, I'll go back to the fact that he's just an everyday guy that wants to, obviously he wants to play really well, but he's a family man. He's a great friend. He's just a great person in general. Loves sports, can talk sports.
The thing about Jordan, I just wanted to bring this up real quick. We've talked about Peyton Manning and his podcast, or his Peyton's Places, which I've just discovered, and it's just fantastic.
It's cool. Yeah.
He's very funny. Jordan's a very funny guy. He's got a great sense of humor.
Killer sense of humor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because we do have a propensity to look at these professional athletes, even like a Steph Curry, all that, and we put them on the pedestal.
Right, robotic. They're not. Yeah.
And we think all they do is just play their particular sport, but we forget. Oh yeah, he still has to wipe the butt of the baby. He still has to take out the trash. He still has to.
Great stuff.
And so we dehumanize. A lot of the professional athletes, put them on that pedestal.
Well, we deify.
Yeah,
and that's worse.
Better. Yeah, that is worse. That is worse.
Because they're not gods. They're human beings. They're just talented and obviously doing something with the talent, not wasting it.
For sure. Yeah. But that's when it is very refreshing with guys like the Jordans and the Stephs of the world is they do take the time. They know what's important. They know why the fans are there. They know the effort that the fan took to even get there. They acknowledge that, and so they're going to take the time to spend time with them.
Right.
And it's always to me very refreshing with athletes like that, knowing they have the platform to then make an impact.
Right.
And so you see the athletes like a Jordan, with his foundation, they're making impact with their platform. And to me, that's
giving
more
back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they know they're blessed, so they give back.
Yeah, and this is early on. This is how I kind of explained to all my guys is your career. Every single game, every single round, every single time you're out there, to me is just one stroke on a massive canvas that you want to build as a legacy.
Right.
So at the end of your career, the end of your life, all these little strokes that you're putting on, winning majors, or even just signing an autograph to a kid that is super ill, and you have no idea how much that made that kid's day. That's a stroke on this beautiful canvas. At the end of their career, they go, you know what, I did it right, and this is a really beautiful picture of a legacy that I intentfully created, and I wanted to do this. And so to me, that's more powerful at the end of the career. How can I look back on, the everyday and how beautiful was that picture that I intentionally or intentfully tried to make?
Right.
And guys like Jordan and those guys. I mean, even the younger guys out there right now, they just get it, and they're using their platform to make impact. And to me, winning the majors is really cool, and that's fun, and obviously we want to win everything. But the impact that they made in the process to me is more important than anything.
Right. Now I'm going to let you debunk a myth that I have that I have told my friends, and I'm going to be. Well, we're not going to get into the performance anxiety just yet, but we're going to. But this is something I said, and I want to see how you respond to this. Right. One of my favorite golfers to watch is Cameron Smith. Mm-hmm. And I like to say to my buddies, he ain't going to any weight room. He can just flat out play golf. Yeah. He's skinny, he's got the mullet, and he makes everything he looks at. Yeah. And of course, Jordan's made his share too, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
But do all these guys, is there an exception? Is he one of these guys that maybe just doesn't work out and he's just that good for right now? Or you tell me.
I'll immediately debunk it because he does. He does work out. He does take care of the body.
Yeah. You have to, don't you?
You have to. Yeah. I mean, even if it's at an elemental level, that you got to do your mobility, you got to do your recovery, you got to get your soft tissue taken care of. Now, he might not do it to the extent of a John Rahm or Jordan or some of these guys, But, you take a guy like that, if they are not doing something, they're going to fizzle super quick, and you're not going to see them anymore.
That's right.
I mean, we see the game's evolution right now. If you're not hitting it far, if you don't have a really killer swing speed, you're going to get lost in the shuffle, and no one's going to really know who the heck you were anymore. I mean, it's a young man's game, and the lifespan for these guys, and this is my contention, where we had these athletes on tour for 20-something years. Well, quite honestly, there's so much young talent. I mean, look, your very first pockets with the Cootie brothers. I mean, those guys are studs, and they're going to absolutely come onto the PGA Tour and just show out and do really well. And so, do you think guys like a Jordan looks at that and go, oh my gosh, these younger guys are going to come out here, they're going to be banging the ball, they're bombing the ball? Absolutely. And so the lifespan of that career may start to get shorter, but how do I take advantage of that smaller window of a career to then, go toe-to-toe with these younger guys?
Right.
And that's where, quite honestly, if I always equate it as like, golf is a very, very chaotic and very fast movement that then you just kind of have a leisurely walk in between. It's, to me, the equivalent of, a sprinter, right? And so that sprinter has a very different body than a marathoner, and so to me, I can apply a lot more force if I have a lot more muscle, right? And we've had this theory of, if I gain muscle, that's going to be bad for my golf swing. Well, yeah, just gaining muscle for gaining muscle's sake and looking huge, it'd probably make you a little immobile. But when you're starting to mix all the pieces of the recipe well together, working on the mobility, gaining a little bit of the muscle, working on your speed, working on your stability, the nutrition, the hydration, all that other stuff. Yeah. When I envelop myself as a full athlete and really take all the components in, man, this is what we're seeing on tour right now, is these younger athletes that can just absolutely rip the ball and maintain staying away from injury for a while.
Exactly.
And really that to me is the key element, is going, okay, how do we reduce the risk of injury and then pour in the components of performance after that? So to go back to your debunk theory, Cam Smith is still doing stuff. Yeah. It may not be to the level of a lot of the other guys, like I said, Rory's and all that, but he's still doing something.
His appearance hadn't changed, so he's not.
The mullet is throwing you off.
Right. Well, the putting stroke, my goodness.
Yeah.
Speaking of injury, and I don't know how comfortable you are talking about this, but of course, Will Zalatoris.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Local guy, great player, great kid.
Yeah.
He's had that back injury now for about a year, and hopefully going to be coming back. Yeah. Can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, no. What I can say is he's making some absolutely great strides for sure in the rehab side. We'll get him back pretty quick here, so be on the lookout pretty soon. But once again, you take a look at that, and you really got to look at the pathology of what led to that particular event, and I think, quite honestly, it goes back to the athletic development piece as a kid. These guys are really, as juniors, just playing golf, and they're not playing soccer or basketball or anything. They're really not playing a lot of sports that develop athletics.
Scheffler did.
Well,
he's one that
absolutely.
I think aren't parents going to talk about that going forward?
You have to, because when we're starting to take a look at the junior athlete, let's not forget athleticism in the word. It's multi-directional sports. It's working cardiovascular. It's working jumping. It's working shooting. There's a lot of elements on playing multiple sports that really is an investment later on in your athletic development that is really going to do well. So you got to take a look at a guy like Will and a lot of these golfers where they committed very early to sport, and and he played some baseball, things like that. But there's some things where I would have loved to get my hands on them 10 years ago. But to go back to that question, I mean, he's making some really cool strides.
That's great.
And he's got a killer team around him.
That's great.
And you know, next year I'm really looking forward to the freedom that he's going to bring with this time that he's had. Obviously, with the rehab, it's never fun going through rehab.
No.
But this is honestly the first time he's had a break.
Did he actually have surgery?
We had a little bit, yeah. We had the surgery piece on that.
Because I think Trevino had that. I mean, people have overcome that.
Yeah, and listen, it's not a fun one to go through, but yeah, I mean, and back to the fact is, this is the first time since he's probably 8 years old where he actually took a little bit of time away from golf.
Yeah, good for him.
And so once again, this didn't happen to him. It probably happened for him, just to have a break and almost come back to the new season with a renewed frame of mind and probably a lot more gratitude being out there as well.
Amen.
But he's going to be in a lot better shape for sure.
Okay. Want to get to my performance anxiety piece. That's what I'm calling this show, because you're a performance coach.
This is where we pull the couch out for you.
Well, right. I've mentioned this before, that I used to have a recurring dream, and I like to tell about it because it's really humorous. But I'm teeing off the first hole, and I can't tee the ball up in the right spot. I keep moving it. And the guys that I'm playing, it's like the club championship or something. They go ahead and tee off and they leave, and I'm still trying to tee it up. There's always something wrong with the place I'm trying to hit from. And they make the turn, and I'm still on the first tee trying to make, and then they finish their round and they go in and have a drink and start playing gin rummy. I'm still out there trying to tee it up. Well, somebody told me, some amateur psychiatrist or psychologist said, that's performance anxiety. And this particular person said, I used to have it when I was playing football. I could never get my shoulder pads on right. Could never get out of the locker room. Everybody's out on the field. I'm in the locker room. And so I got to thinking, do the great athletes that you coach, do they have anything similar to that? I'm not saying they have anything that maybe strange, but
that's definitely.
But there's obviously I get overly nervous, just little tournaments like the World Amateur or whatever. It's I want to perform well, and I'm not confident. And
right.
I probably haven't done all these things you have prescribed to be confident.
Right.
But I'm just wondering how you coach people performance-wise. I guess.
Luckily, we bring on the psychologist and the performance coach into the mix when we start talking about that. But even before then, we bring the physiology piece to it, and there are some really cool tools out there like NeuroPeak, Muse, tools that start to help us develop, where our brainwave is and our breathing patterns are, to get in that, kind of easier energy level of mind to then mitigate the performance anxiety, right? So
you
now,
sound like an insurance guy. We're always mitigating our losses. No, I'm sorry. I'm kidding.
Maybe I should get insurance. That's my next career.
No,
but it is true. Is
lessen the stress.
Lessen the stress, and performance anxiety. I mean, listen, as an athlete, I dealt with that as well. I mean, I would legitimately just get the yaks before every game. And this is before I had any of the tools available to me now.
Right.
And looking back, there was a couple things. One, I didn't really know that I had a little bit of a reflux thing. So I was like, oh, well, I wish I would have known that when I was 18, 19, 20. But at the same time, I worked myself up because I was a very high energy player, that I just worked on that, very high frame of mind of just go, 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 where I probably could have operated a lot better on a lower level, state of mind, in order to then just have some freedom of motion so I can actually play better, right? And so when we start to think about like performance anxiety and things like that, is where my world can step back into the physiology side of that, where we really can step into and lead into the psychology piece on that. It's like, why are we, having those? And it's always probably associated more from a trauma response, right? And so there's probably a time where, you probably teed it up and weren't ready, and then, there was a gallery sitting there and you had your buddies with you and you absolutely sculled it into the clubhouse or something.
Yeah.
So that
how'd you know?
It's set a trauma response that then we start to really build out around that. And so, there's moments where, even at the highest level, we deal with an element of performance anxiety, but being able to contend with, I'll go back to earlier in the discussion, those awry shots, those "it is like me to" blank, right?
It is like me to, and what was the pause?
Practice the pause.
Practice the pause, yeah.
So, all those little elements, lead into, say I'm going into a tournament. It is like me to show up to the tournament and do this in order to prepare myself. It is like me to go into, the first tee, and here's my entire, operating mechanism that I do at the first tee. I know I'm going to drink a swig of, whatever it is that is an order of business in order to then set the trigger to go, yep, I'm ready. To me, it is being prepared for that moment, knowing what you're going into, but reinforcing it. It is like me too then, and whatever you're going to fill that blank in with is probably going to manifest itself, right? It is like me to be nervous for a tournament. Well, then you'll probably be nervous for the tournament. Or I go, it is like me to show up to the tournament fully prepared because I know that I did the work, and then be confident in my preparation, and then just let it fly because I know I prepared 10 times better than my competition. Those are ways to then prepare for the element of having performance anxiety. Then, if we know that it's probably building up and I can see my breathing patterns are changing, my thoughts are starting to spin, that's where we can start to implement the tools of, all right, what is a good breathing technique? What is my practice of pause? What am I thankful for right now? And so we're kind of backstopping my anxiety with, gratitude, with slowing down. There seems to be a theme in my discussion, right? Is most of us don't slow down enough to even be thankful for or whatever. And so, I think golf is the reason I am so attracted to it is because of the absolute chaotic nature to it. I mean, it's an absolutely unnatural movement. It's just a one-sided movement that is absolutely rapid and chaotic. But then we have that moment, whether I'd even be in the cart or we're walking to my next ball, where there's that space and time that then I can either embrace where I'm at or escalate the, and that's why I love the name of the, the name of the show. It's like, if I hit it in the rough, that's no fun. And if I hit it in the stuff that's mowed, pretty cool, right? And so to me, that's why I love golf. Is it's a reflection of our life being very chaotic, but we have these moments of quiet that if we still spin out during those moments of quiet, then it's just going to make the chaotic moments even more chaotic. But if we can embrace the chaotic moments, then we have those spaces in time where I can reflect and be grateful, prepare myself for that particular next chaotic moment, and those keep repeating. Next thing I know is I'm taking those chaotic moments and I'm handling them incredibly well. And so that's why I think golf is a really cool reflection of life. You can't avoid the chaos. It's going to happen. But how are we going to handle that chaos? And it is like me to handle that really, really well.
I love that. And as a believer, a Christian guy, I had a situation at the World Amateur where the third day I went out, not only with my rental car not start, I couldn't get into it. The key fob was dead. Right. I called, they said take the manual out. I opened it up, wouldn't start. DQ'd for the first time in 60 years of all the things that's happening. But I thought, this is good. This is a God thing. He's saying, you get a day off.
Yeah, you get a day off.
Yeah, and it rained. They had a lightning delay, and I had this great day in Calabash, North Carolina, where I went into a restaurant, met all these nice people. And so I innately, I think I had kind of knew to do that. And I was playing poorly, so it was a nice it was a nice break.
You didn't want to DQ yourself,
Right. But you
that's
touched on some things, and I've just about every show I've gone into this, but someone at church at lunch asked me one day, he doesn't play golf, what do you get out of golf? And I said, Larry, let me think about that. And I came back with friendship, the people I get to meet and get to know, like you today. And then I said the competition. You mentioned being competitive with your brother in a good way. We all have this instinct, we want to compete.
Absolutely.
And then I said, one of my associates, George Mayshock, always talks about the cathedrals of the golf course. You get to be in the beautiful setting. And then the final thing has been part of the first tee movement, and I look back and it was part of my love for the game of golf. It's just the flight of the golf ball.
Wow, that's gorgeous.
Seeing a ball go where you're wanting to hit it, there's something magnetic about that. And you love working with these guys that are obviously at the very top of the game, and that's a neat thing. So as a performance guy, you're almost entirely on the physiological side of how to perform better, and they bring in their I got to thinking, what would make Jordan really nervous? And then I thought, well, it'd be great if he could win the PGA. So when he plays in the PGA, he can't help it, it ramps up a little. He's a human. Same way with Rory and the Masters.
Absolutely.
And so they got people to talk to about that.
No, and that's and that's why these guys surround themselves with really cool verticals within the team that will help them. But every aspect of that team understands how one begets the other, right? And so I know the mental coach, he's always going to ask, well, how are you doing with your sleep, hydration, nutrition, performance? And so one begets the other. And so I think it's really important, with the game being at the level it is right now, even for us being, we're competitive guys, we hit that it's one fun. Shot that always gets us coming back. But there is, something to it to really kind of go, all right, if I want to take my game to that next level, what am I actually doing? Am I just practicing, which is obviously very important, right? But what are some of the other elements that make me just a better human being in existing, right? And we'll go back to, Gary Player as your reference. I mean, that guy is still doing his thing. Because he invested the time very early on in his life. I mean, the guy can still do probably a one-arm push-up. He could still do jumping jacks. He's probably outrun all of us, right? And and so he invested early, but understood my investment early is going to take me into a business of longevity. And once again, I mean, he's still making an impact on the golf world and probably a lot of people. And it just goes back to, what are the elements that I can put into play right now, keep me here on the earth for a long time in order to make a bigger impact?
Well, you had a great takeaway today. Practice the pause. And what was the other one? What is it that I do, or what?
Oh, it is like me too.
It is like me too. One of the greatest things that's ever been said on my podcast, actually it was when I was doing the radio show, Rome Pewitt, who's from Austin, great amateur player, said the important question is not how did you play, but how were you to play with? I thought, wow, that's profound.
Cool. No, that's a cool
because
statement.
that means how were you as a person out there today? And obviously I love that's a big part of what you do.
That's a huge piece. I mean, you strip away the elements of working with the pro athletes, and if I'm a pro, you take away golf. At the end of the day, people aren't gonna be concerned how many majors you won or whatever. You were just a good person. You made an impact, and along the way, you did some pretty cool stuff with the one shot we got at this life. So.
Amen. And on that one show I was telling you about with Scott Verplank, I asked him about Don January, whom we lost in May at age 93. He said to me he was like Byron Nelson. He was just a very nice man. And I thought, at the end of the day, or at the end of your life, that's a I can't think of a better compliment than you're a very nice man.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely.
This has been a blast. We're about out of time. Is there anything I forgot to ask you? Just people can Google you, right? Get in touch with you.
No, they can Google Damon Goddard, or they can follow me on Instagram.
There you go.
The name of the company is Goddard Sports Performance and Nutrition. So just go to Instagram, Goddard SPN, and follow it, and message me with any questions or whatever you might have. Pretty easy to reach too.
It's been a great show because I never even looked at my notes.
I love it.
I typed all that up, but it was just a great conversation.
For sure.
Thank you so much for coming in.
No, I'm honored that you had me on. Really, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Damon. That'll do it for this edition of Hit It Where They Mow, but we've got more fun things coming in September, so go on YouTube and put in the search bar there, Hit It Where They Mow, and savor, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you very much.